The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the long metal corridor. Captain Ryan walked quickly toward the docking bay, his boots hitting the floor in sharp, steady beats. The call had come only minutes ago. Urgent and unexpected. Incoming. Ship from the Galactic Empire, the voice on the intercom had said. All senior officers report to the bay. Ryan had expected trouble. Maybe an inspection, maybe new orders. But what he found when the bay doors opened was something else. Entirely, the massive steel doors slid apart with a low hiss, revealing the cold expanse of the docking bay. The air smelled faintly of engine oil and ozone. Soldiers stood in neat rows, their eyes fixed on the small shuttle resting in the center of the floor. Its sleek silver body gleamed under the harsh white lights, the Empire's crest painted boldly. On its side, Ryan's heart tightened. The Empire rarely sent ships this far to the outer sectors. And when they did, it was never for a friendly visit. The shuttle's ramp extended slowly, making a hollow clang as it touched the ground. Everyone leaned forward slightly, expecting to see a tall, name-posing general or a decorated war hero step out. Instead, there was a pause, and then small footsteps, light and quick, echoed against the metal ramp. Out stepped an alien girl no taller than Ryan's chest. Her frame was delicate but firm, her skin a soft shade of pale gold, and her large, bright eyes scanned the bay with calm. Confidence, she wore a sharp black uniform. It seemed lined with silver thread, and the 3 small rank bars on her collar marked her as a commander. For a moment, the bay was silent. The soldiers glanced at each other. Some with raised eyebrows, a few hiding small smirks. Captain Ryan's lips twitched into a faint, confused smile. He had served for 15 years. And he had never seen the Empire send someone like her for a high-priority mission. Her boots clicked softly as she walked toward him. Her head held high. Every step carried a strange weight, as if the air shifted around her. She stopped right in front of him, tilted her head up, and said in a clear voice, "Captain Ryan." He nodded, still unsure what to make of her. "Yes," he replied. She tapped her datapad, a small holographic seal flashing into the air between them. "By order of the Empire's High Command," she said, "you are relieved of direct command of this base, effective immediately." The words hit him like a physical blow. His brows knit together, and he glanced around. Seeing the soldiers' surprised faces, "Excuse me?" he asked, his voice low. The alien girl, Commander Lyra, as her nameplate read, didn't flinch. From this moment, she continued, "All operational decisions will go through me." Ryan's jaw tightened. Anger burned in his chest. But so did confusion. "May I ask, why?" he said, keeping his tone sharp but controlled. She took a small step closer. So close, he could see the faint silver flecks in her golden eyes. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. "Because you're not ready for what's coming. Something." In her tone made him pause. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't a threat. It was certainty. A cold, heavy certainty. Before he could speak again, she brushed past him, her small frame cutting a path straight toward the command consoles. Soldiers instinctively stepped aside as she moved. Ryan stood frozen for a moment, his mind racing. This had to be some kind of mistake. Or maybe a political move. The Empire didn't trust humans with full control in critical sectors. He had heard that rumor before. But why send someone like her? She looked young, fragile even. Yet she walked with the authority of someone who had commanded armies. He followed her to the console, watching as her fingers flew over the holographic controls. "What are you doing?" he asked. She didn't. "Look up, reassigning patrols, changing defense routes, and shutting down 3 unnecessary supply runs." She replied, "Your current defense layout is vulnerable." The way she said it made Ryan bristle. "I've been running this base for years without a single breach," he said. Her eyes flicked to him for just a second. And that's exactly why the enemy will strike now, she answered. Calmly, Ryan's gaze hardened. He had dealt with arrogant commanders before. But there was something different here. She wasn't trying to insult him. She was warning him he didn't like it. But he also couldn't shake the uneasy feeling creeping up his spine. The soldiers nearby kept their eyes on their work, but Ryan could tell they were listening. The sudden shift in authority was going to spread. Through the base like wildfire, some would mock it. Others would resent it. But right now, Ryan's focus stayed on Lyra. She looked up from the console. Her expression, unreadable. I need access to all long-range scans for the past 72 hours, she said. There's something out there. He frowned. Out where? She tilted her head toward the observation windows, where the endless black of space stretched beyond. In the dark, she said softly, and moving closer. A shiver ran down Ryan's spine for the first time since she stepped off that shuttle. He wasn't thinking about her size or her rank. He was thinking about the way her voice made the air in the room feel heavier. She wasn't here for politics. She wasn't here to make friends. She was here because something was coming. And if she was right, they had less time than he thought. The next morning, the base felt different. Soldiers moved with a quiet tension, glancing at the small alien commander who now walked through the halls as if she had been there for years. Commander Lyra carried her datapad in one hand, her other hand clasped behind her back. She spoke little, but when she did, her words cut through the air like a blade. Captain Ryan kept his distance, but he watched her every move. She had reassigned patrol schedules, canceled his planned weapons drill, and even ordered a complete shutdown of one supply line to the outer watchtowers. It was as if she were tearing apart his entire system and rebuilding it from scratch. By midday, Ryan had had enough. He found her in the command center. Standing in front of the main holomap. We need to talk, he said sharply. She didn't look at him. We are talking, she replied, her eyes scanning data streams. No, Ryan said, stepping closer. We're going to have a real conversation, right now, in private. She finally turned her head toward him, her golden eyes calm. Fine, she said, and walked past him toward his office. Ryan followed, closing the door behind them. The air inside was heavier than usual. You can't just walk in here and override every decision I make, Ryan began. This base has been running fine for years under my command. Lyra placed her datapad on the desk, its imperial seal glowing. Faintly, by order of the High Command, she said. My authority here is absolute. Ryan's jaw tightened. And why is that? She leaned forward slightly, her voice low. Because there's a threat coming that you are not prepared for. Ryan crossed his arms. Then tell me about it. She shook her head. Not yet, she said. You'll see soon enough. Her confidence was infuriating. But before Ryan could respond, a sharp alarm echoed through the base. The intercom blared. Perimeter breach detected, Sector 7. Ryan and Lyra exchanged a quick look before rushing out of the office. The command center was alive with activity, soldiers shouting updates as red warning lights pulsed overhead. A grainy feed appeared on the holodisplay, shadowy figures moving fast along the outer walls. Activate defense drones, Ryan ordered, but Lyra raised her hand. Hold, she said. Ryan turned to her, his voice hard. If we wait, they'll get inside. She studied the movement on the feed. They're testing the defenses. Not attacking, she said. If we activate drones now, they'll know our response time and weapon positions. Ryan hesitated. Every instinct told him to fight now. But something in her voice made him pause. He gave a curt nod. Then what? Lyra's fingers danced over her datapad. We let them get closer, then cut off their retreat. She said. Minutes later, the figures reached the outer wall, and Ryan's chest tightened. But before he could give the order, Lyra spoke sharply. Now, hidden turrets sprang from the ground. their barrels glowing as they fired controlled bursts. The shadowy intruders scattered, some falling, others fleeing. The remaining few darted into a small canyon on the east side of the base, exactly where Lyra had positioned a second group of soldiers. Within seconds, they were surrounded. When Ryan and Lyra arrived at the canyon, the enemy had already dropped. Their weapons, their armor was crude, their faces hidden by dark visors. As the soldiers restrained them, Lyra knelt beside one of the captured devices lying in the dust. Her fingers traced strange markings on its side. "This isn't random," she said quietly. "They're placing beacons." Ryan frowned. For what? She met his eyes, her expression grim, for something much bigger. They brought the prisoners back for questioning, but none of them spoke a word. Lyra watched them from behind the glass wall. Her gaze sharp. "They're not the real threat," she murmured. "They're just the beginning." Later that night, Ryan stood on the observation deck, looking out into the endless black of space. The stars seemed calm, but his mind was not. Lyra joined him silently. "You handled that well today," he said reluctantly. She didn't smile. "It wasn't enough," she replied. "The real attack will come soon. And when it does, it won't be a test." Ryan glanced at her. "You still haven't told me what exactly we're up against?" She looked out at the stars, her voice soft but steady. "If I told you, you wouldn't sleep tonight." The quiet between them was heavy. Ryan didn't know if she was exaggerating, but the unease in his chest was real for the first time in years. He felt like the base wasn't ready, and the strange pint-sized commander might be the only one who truly understood what was coming. The next day began quietly, too quietly. The sun's pale light filtered through the base's high windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Soldiers went about their routines, but everyone felt the same unease. The patrol reports from the night before had been reviewed. The captured intruders locked away, and yet there was no real sense of relief. Captain Ryan walked through the corridor toward the command center, his mind heavy with unanswered questions. Commander Lyra was already there, standing at the central holomap. She was studying the border regions with an intensity that made her seem taller than she was. Her small fingers moved quickly across the display, rearranging defense grids. "Morning," Ryan said, trying to sound casual. She didn't look up. "It won't be morning for long," she said quietly. Ryan frowned. "Meaning?" Lyra's golden eyes flicked toward him for just a second. "Meaning we'll have company before the sun sets." Ryan was about to ask more when the base alarm screamed to life. The deep, rolling sound echoed through the metal walls. The voice over the intercom was sharp. Multiple fast-moving contacts. "Southeast perimeter." Ryan's heart kicked into gear. "All squads to defense positions," he ordered. Lyra didn't waste a second. She was already moving, her datapad in one hand, giving orders into her earpiece in a voice calm but firm. Soldiers in the command center stopped glancing at her height. They just listened. The holomap lit up with red markers. The enemy was coming fast, small hovercraft kicking up clouds of dust behind them. Their weapons glinted under the sunlight. This was no test run. This was an attack. Ryan moved toward the exit, but Lyra stopped him. "Not the main gate," she said. "They'll expect you there." He hesitated. "Then where?" She pointed to a narrow ridge on the map. "Here, if we control this ridge, we control the whole battlefield." Without waiting for his agreement, she was already sprinting toward the hangar. Ryan cursed under his breath, then followed. Outside, the desert wind was sharp and dry. The two of them climbed into a light transport vehicle. Lyra, taking the gunner's seat, she strapped herself in with quick, practiced movements that didn't match her size. They reached the ridge within minutes. From here, Ryan could see the enemy wave approaching the base. Lyra's eyes scanned the battlefield like she had been born for it. 3 squads, split formation. Advance from the east, she muttered. They'll try to circle the base. Ryan glanced at her. How do you know? She didn't take her eyes off the enemy, because that's exactly what I would do. The first hovercraft roared into range. Lyra's hands moved like lightning on the turret controls. The weapon fired in short, controlled bursts, each shot striking with precision. Enemy vehicles swerved, some crashing into the sand. Soldiers on the ground scrambled for cover, but Lyra was already shifting her aim. Cutting down their escape paths, Ryan found himself watching her more than the battlefield. There was no hesitation. In her movements, no wasted energy. She didn't shout or panic. She commanded through action. The soldiers positioned below followed her lead without question. Within 15 minutes, the enemy was in retreat. Hovercraft pulled away. Leaving behind smoking wrecks and scattered gear, Lyra didn't relax. They're leaving something behind, she said. Ryan frowned. What? She pointed towards small metallic objects half buried in the sand. They climbed down to investigate. Ryan knelt and brushed away the dust from one of the devices. It was small, round, and covered in strange markings. Looks like a mine. He said. Lyra shook her head. No, a beacon. Ryan stood. For what? She met his gaze, her expression serious. For something that makes today's fight look like nothing. They gathered as many beacons as they could carry back to the base in the command center. Lyra connected one to her datapad. Streams of alien code filled the air in glowing blue. Ryan didn't understand a word of it. But he could tell from her face it wasn't good news. They've marked this base, she said finally. They're calling in something bigger, and it's already on the way. Ryan crossed his arms. Then we prepare. Lyra nodded. We will, but not like you've been preparing. We need to change everything, Ryan almost argued, but the memory of her on the ridge stopped him. He had seen what she could do, and it was clear now why the Empire had sent her. She might be small, but her mind was sharper than any weapon he had. That night, the base was lit with the glow of soldiers working under floodlights. Lyra moved among them, adjusting equipment, repositioning weapons, and reassigning watch rotations. Nobody laughed at her height anymore. They listened. Ryan watched her from the balcony above, the wind tugging at his jacket for the first time. He thought maybe, just maybe, she was the only reason they might survive what was coming. Asterisk, the base felt different after the skirmish. The laughter that once filled the mess hall was gone. Conversations were shorter, voices quieter, even the air seemed heavier. Captain Ryan walked the perimeter that evening, scanning the horizon for any sign of movement. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction, but it felt as if unseen. Eyes were watching. Commander Lyra was in the control room when Ryan found her. The lights were dim, the only glow coming from the large holomap and her datapad. She was alone, her small figure framed against the shifting blue light of the galaxy. Her eyes were fixed on a cluster of red dots moving slowly across the edge of the map. What are you looking at? Ryan asked. She didn't turn to face him. Trouble, she said simply. He stepped closer, folding his arms, the ones from today. She shook her head. No, something worse. Ryan's brow furrowed. Then maybe it's time you tell me exactly what we're dealing with. She finally turned to him, her expression calm but serious. A rogue faction inside the Empire, she said. They want war with your kind. They think humans are too unpredictable, too dangerous to share space with if they destroy this base. They can blame it on someone else and push the Empire into conflict. Ryan stared at the map. So they're not just raiders. She shook her head. No. The ones you fought today were only scouts. Their real forces are hidden, waiting. They won't show themselves until they think they can win. In one strike, he leaned against the table, his voice low, and the Empire sent you to stop them. Lyra nodded. Yes. Because I'm the only one they wouldn't suspect. They think I'm too small. Too harmless. They're wrong. There was no arrogance in her voice, only certainty. Ryan studied her for a moment, still struggling to understand how someone hurt. Size could carry such weight on her shoulders. If that's true, why not send a fleet? He asked. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight on the map. Because fleets make noise, fleets scare people, and scared people make mistakes. This mission needs to be quiet. Until it can't be, they stood in silence for a moment. The hum of the control room filling the air. Then Lyra pointed at the red dots. They're moving closer each hour. By tomorrow night, they'll be inside striking distance. Ryan straightened. Then we hit them first. She shook her head. Not yet. If we move too soon, we'll only destroy their front line. The real threat will slip away, and they'll try again somewhere else. Her plan was to wait. To let the enemy get close enough to commit fully, it was risky. Dangerously so. Ryan felt the knot of tension in his chest tighten. You're asking me to gamble with the lives of everyone here, he said. Lyra's gaze didn't waver. I'm asking you to trust me. The words hung in the air. Trust. It wasn't something Ryan gave easily, but he couldn't deny what he had seen. Twice now. She had predicted the enemy's moves before they happened. Twice. Her strategy had kept the base standing. Ryan sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. All right, but if you're wrong, she cut him off. I'm not that knight. Ryan couldn't sleep. He walked the base in the darkness, passing guards who stood at their posts with eyes sharper than before. In the quiet, he thought about what Lyra had told him. If the Empire really had factions fighting each other, then the galaxy was even more unstable than he had believed. And if she was right about the hidden enemy, tomorrow could bring more than just a battle. It could bring the spark that lit a war. Just before dawn, Ryan returned to the control room. Lyra was still there. She hadn't left her post. Her eyes were focused on the incoming signals. They're here, she said softly. He stepped beside her and looked at the map. The red dots had multiplied, closing in from 2 directions, 2 fronts. Ryan asked. She nodded. They're trying to divide our forces. He clenched his fists. So, what's your move, Commander? She looked up at him, and for the first time since she arrived, a small, fierce smile touched her lips. We let them think it's working, she said. Then we cut off their head in one strike. Ryan didn't know if it would work, but in that moment, he realized something. He wasn't questioning her authority anymore. He was preparing to follow her lead, and deep down, he hoped to whatever. Gods were listening that she was as unstoppable as she claimed. Because the hidden enemy was no longer in the shadows, they were coming. The dawn sky was pale and still, the kind of calm that made the skin crawl. Captain Ryan stood on the balcony outside the command center, scanning the horizon with his field scope. In the distance, faint dust trails rose from the desert floor. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. The enemy wasn't hiding anymore. They were coming in full force behind him. Commander Lyra stepped onto the balcony, her datapad in one hand. They'll hit us in less than 20 minutes, she said. Ryan lowered the scope. Then let's meet them head on. Lyra shook her head. No, not all of them, if we fight. Them everywhere. We lose everywhere. We hold the ridge and the inner gate. That's where they'll commit their main forces. Ryan frowned. And if you're wrong? She looked at him steadily. Then we die faster. Her tone was calm, matter of fact. Not meant to scare, just to state the truth. The base alarm blared to life. Red lights pulsed along the walls. Soldiers scrambled to their stations, and the low hum of the energy shields filled the air. Ryan took one last look at the approaching dust clouds before heading down to the main gate. Lyra followed, moving quickly despite her small frame. At the gate, soldiers stood ready, their weapons primed. Ryan moved among them, offering quick words of encouragement. He noticed that some of them glanced at Lyra with a different expression now, not mockery. Not doubt, but respect. She had earned it, and they knew it. The first enemy wave came into view, armored vehicles bristling with weapons. Flanked by fast hovercraft carrying troops, their engines roared as they closed the distance. Lyra's voice crackled through the comms. Hold fire, hold. The soldiers gripped their triggers, eyes fixed on the charging wall of metal and dust. Now, she said, the air exploded with sound. Turrets fired in precise bursts, cutting into the front line. Ryan's squad poured concentrated fire into the hovercraft. Forcing them to swerve and crash into each other, the ridge defenses lit up, striking from the high ground just as Lyra had predicted. The enemy pushed harder, their rear forces closing in to press the attack. A missile streaked toward the gate. Striking the shield with a flash of light, the force made the air vibrate. Ryan braced himself against the wall. Shields are holding. A soldier shouted, but Ryan knew they couldn't last forever. Through the chaos, he saw Lyra moving along the front line, giving orders, shifting squads, calling out enemy movements before they happened. Her voice carried a strange calm in the middle of the storm. Soldiers obeyed without hesitation, and the tides seemed to bend to her will. Then Ryan saw it, one of the enemy flanking squads breaking off, heading toward the east watchtower if they took it. They could fire down on the gate from above. Ryan started toward them, but a sudden explosion ripped through the front wall. The blast threw 2 soldiers to the ground, and before Ryan could reach them, Lyra was already there, pulling one to his feet and dragging the other behind cover. Stay down, she ordered, firing her sidearm at advancing troops. Ryan joined her, laying down cover fire. Together, they pushed the enemy back just enough for reinforcements to arrive. As the fight raged on, Ryan realized something. This wasn't her fight alone, and it wasn't his fight alone. Every move they made, every order they gave, worked because they trusted each other in that moment. The enemy began to falter, their front line breaking under the combined pressure of the ridge fire and the gate defenses. A loud cheer rose from the soldiers, but Lyra didn't celebrate. She looked toward the desert, her eyes narrowing. It's not over, she said. Ryan followed her gaze. A massive shape was emerging from the dust, a heavy assault tank, far larger than anything they had seen so far. Its armor gleamed under the morning sun, and its main cannon was already turning toward the gate. Shields won't take that, Ryan said. Lyra nodded. Then we hit it before it fires. She gave quick orders, directing all ridge turrets to focus fire on the tank's treads. Sparks flew as energy blasts struck its armored sides, slowing it, but not stopping it. Ryan saw the cannon charging, a bright light building inside the barrel. Move, he shouted, diving behind cover as the weapon fired. The shield flared and cracked under the impact, pieces of molten metal raining down from the gate's frame. Lyra didn't hesitate. She sprinted toward a nearby mounted rocket launcher. Climbing onto the platform with quick, precise movements, Ryan ran to cover her, firing at enemy troops trying to take aim at her position. She steadied the launcher, took a breath, and fired. The rocket streaked across the field, striking the tank's cannon directly. The explosion ripped through the massive machine, sending smoke and fire into the air. Soldiers on the wall erupted into cheers. But Ryan's focus was on Lyra. She climbed down slowly. A thin line of blood running down her arm, where shrapnel had grazed her. You're hit, Ryan said, moving toward her. She shook her head. Just a scratch, she replied. Her eyes scanned the field, making sure the enemy was truly in retreat. By the time the dust settled, the base was still standing. Soldiers gathered around, some clapping Lyra on the shoulder, others saluting her. Ryan met her gaze. You kept us alive today. She gave a small smile. We kept us alive. Ryan realized something then. Loyalty wasn't given because of rank. It was earned in fire. And today, in the heat of battle, she had earned his. The morning after the battle was quiet, but it was not the peace anyone hoped for. The smell of smoke still clung to the air, and the faint sound of damaged machinery hummed through the base. Captain Ryan walked the walls, looking over repair crews as they welded cracked panels and patched the shield emitters. Soldiers moved slower today, exhaustion weighing on their steps. Commander Lyra was in the command center, leaning over the holomap with a frown. The beacons recovered from the last attack were now displayed in red, blinking slowly. There. Not done, she said when Ryan entered. These beacons weren't just trackers, they're signals. Ryan stepped closer. Signals to what? She tapped her datapad and the hologram shifted, showing a massive signature moving through the edge of their sensor range. A warship, she said. One that makes yesterday's fight look small. The word warship sank into Ryan's mind like a weight. How big? He asked. Big enough to crack this base in half with one shot. Lyra replied. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp, and it's coming straight for us. Ryan looked at the map, his mind racing. Then we evacuate, he said. Lyra shook her head. No, there's no time, and if we run, they'll hunt us down in the open. Our only chance is to take it out before it fires. Her plan was bold, almost suicidal. She wanted to overload the base's main energy core, then channel all that power into one focused pulse through the long-range communications array. The pulse, if timed perfectly, could disable the warship systems. But if the timing was off by even a second, the core would go critical and destroy the base. Ryan stared at her. That's not a plan. That's a gamble. She met his gaze. It's survival. There was no time for argument. The sensors picked up the warship entering close range. Its dark, jagged hull blotting out sections of the starfield on the observation screens. It moved with a slow, deadly grace, as if certain nothing could stop it. Ryan followed Lyra to the power chamber. The hum of the core was deep and constant, filling the air like a heartbeat. Engineers looked up as they entered. We're going to push the core past safe levels, Lyra said. I'll coordinate the firing sequence from the command center. Captain Ryan will manage the overload here. Ryan blinked. You're trusting me with the most dangerous part. She nodded. You've been here longer. You know every emergency bypass by heart. I can't do this without you. The words caught him off guard, but he gave a firm nod. Then, let's end this. The countdown began. Outside, the warship's massive cannon began to glow, preparing to fire. Inside, the base's core grew brighter, its energy readings spiking, warning alarms blaring through the chamber. Ryan worked quickly, adjusting coolant flow, rerouting excess power, keeping the overload steady without letting it spiral out of control. Lyra's voice crackled through the comms. 30 seconds until firing position. The warship loomed closer on the monitors, its shadow stretching over the base. Ryan's hands flew over the controls, sweat rolling down his back. The core was roaring now, the floor vibrating under his boots. 10 seconds. Lyra's voice came again, calm but urgent. Prepare to release power on my mark. Ryan's eyes locked on the energy readout. The numbers were climbing dangerously high. 5, 4, 3. Mark. Ryan slammed the release. The chamber filled with a blinding white light as the energy surged through the conduits. Racing toward the communications array, outside, a massive beam of concentrated power shot into the sky, striking the warship. Dead center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the warship's lights flickered. Its engine stuttered, and its cannon dimmed. The massive vessel began to drift, its weapons falling silent. Cheers erupted across the base, but Ryan barely heard them. He was focused on the core's readings. The overload had left it unstable. Shut it down. He shouted into the comms. Lyra's voice came back immediately. Already on it. systems across the base powered down in sequence, the hum of the core slowly fading back to a steady rhythm. The warship, now powerless, began to turn away. Retreating into the dark void of space, Ryan leaned against the console, his chest rising and falling. Moments later, Lyra appeared in the chamber, a faint smile on her face. "We did it," she said. Ryan shook his head. "You did it." She shook hers in return. "No, we did it, together." They stood there in the hum of the recovering core, the weight of what they had just done settling in. Outside, the base was still scarred, but it was standing, and for now, the threat was gone. Ryan looked at her. Really looked at her, the small alien who had walked off a shuttle days ago and taken command of his world. He realized then that she had never been here to take his place. She had been here to save them all, and she had. The warship was gone. But the base was still waking from the battle shadow. The air smelled faintly of burnt metal, and the distant hiss of repair welders echoed through the corridors. Soldiers moved slower now, not from fear, but from exhaustion. Every face carried the look of someone who had walked close to death and stepped back. Captain Ryan stood on the observation deck, staring out into the black stretch of space. The stars looked calm, as if nothing had happened, but he knew better. Beside him, Commander Lyra rested her small hands on the railing. Her uniform was scorched along one shoulder, and a thin bandage wrapped around her arm she hadn't taken. "A break since the warship's retreat. They won't come back soon," she said quietly. Ryan glanced at her. "You sound sure." She gave a small nod. "They took a loss today. They didn't expect. It will take time for them to plan again. And when they do, you'll be ready." Her words carried weight, more than he expected. "You're leaving," Ryan said, not as a question, but as a statement. She didn't deny it. "My mission here is complete. The Empire will send others to handle the politics. My work was to make sure this place survived the first strike." Ryan turned to face her fully. "When you first walked off that shuttle, I thought you were a mistake." She smirked faintly. "You weren't the only one." He shook his head. "I was wrong. You didn't just save this base. You changed it. You changed me." Lyra's golden eyes met his, steady and unflinching. "You were a good captain before I came," she said. "But now? You understand that leadership isn't about standing tallest. It's about standing where you're needed most." They stood in silence for a moment. The quiet hum of the base around them. Down below, soldiers carried debris, patched walls, and restored shield generators. Every now and then, one of them would glance up toward the observation deck, eyes lingering on the small figure who had led them through the fire. Ryan walked with her to the docking bay later that afternoon. The small shuttle that had brought her here was waiting, its silver hull gleaming under the bay lights. The soldiers had gathered, not because they were ordered to, but because they wanted to. Some saluted, others simply nodded in respect. Lyra paused before boarding. Turning to face them, her voice was calm but clear. "You fought well, you adapted, you survived. Remember that it was not because of one commander or one captain, but because you trusted each other. That is why you are still standing." Ryan stepped forward, extending his hand. "Safe travels, Commander." She took his hand in her smaller one. Her grip firm. "Hold the line, Captain," she said. Then, almost as an afterthought, she added, "And don't ignore your perimeter scans. You humans have a habit of relaxing too soon." A few soldiers chuckled quietly. Ryan smiled. "I'll keep that in mind." The shuttle's ramp closed with a soft hiss. Engines hummed to life, and the sleek vessel rose gently before angling upward toward the open bay doors. Ryan stood with the others, watching it shrink against the vast canvas of stars until it was gone. When the last echo of the shuttle's engines faded, Ryan remained in the bay, hands clasped behind his back. He thought of her words, her plans, her ability to see 3 steps ahead while he was still deciding on the first move. She had come here a stranger, an outsider, someone half his size. And yet she had carried a presence larger than the entire base as he turned to leave. A young sergeant approached him. "Sir, who was she really?" The soldier asked. Ryan paused, considering the question. "She was the one we didn't know we needed," he said finally. "And the reason we're still breathing." That night, Ryan stood again on the observation deck. The stars glimmered above, silent and watchful. Somewhere out there, Lyra was moving on to her next mission, carrying the same quiet certainty that had saved them. He wondered if their paths would ever cross again, and part of him hoped they would. Because now he understood something he hadn't before. Respect was not about fear. It was not about titles or medals. It was earned in the moments when everything could be lost. And someone stands unshaken, and she had earned his.